few news stories I thought were interesting. I may not have 10 minutes worth of them today, but I got some. So I thought this was pretty interesting. I didn't know this. There's a website called FakeSpot, and it's been up for years, that helps you identify false reviews about products online, which is a big issue. You can pay people to write fake good reviews for you at Mechanical Turk and so on, and people do to promote Amazon books and other products. And now they're using AI to do that. And they made an AI detecting tool which detects reviews that are too similar, repeated reviews across different products and such, and flags them. So you can go to this website called FakeSpot, and it will tell you which reviews are bad. And so now Mozilla is going to take this and build it into Firefox. So there'll be a Firefox extension to notify you when the reviews you're reading are inauthentic and unreliable. It seems like a very good idea. I just heard about this on Paul's Security Weekly. I'm using there's a common VPN that's used these days, WireGuard. I'm using WireGuard, which is very easy to set up, but there's an even easier one called Tailscale, which will just automatically set up a virtual private network for you. So apparently there's a free zero config business VPN. So there's various versions of it. I've never tried it, but they say this really works. It's very good, and it's very easy to set up. And so the main reason I use a VPN is to get past content blocking, which is an ever-increasing problem. City College blocks all kinds of interesting things, but it's also a good idea for other privacy reasons. And you need it now if you wanted to watch porn in Utah. Utah has ordered all internet porn sites to verify that the users are 18 or above by having them send up a photograph of a government ID. And Pornhub, which runs most of them, has decided to not to block Utah entirely, rather than comply with that. So we'll see what comes of all that. There will be no Kahoot today, Rouhani, and I don't think there's any quiz due either. All right. So this Apple has been very, very slow to develop good update mechanisms. And most people are way behind in their Apple patches. They're certainly less urgent than Windows patches, but now they have developed, just for the very latest version of Apple's iOS and macOS, you can get a rapid security update. So they finally developed a security update channel that's different than a feature update channel, and you can turn on, so it'll automatically put on security updates fast, which is what they've needed for years. Because Apple updates, I'm behind on updates on some of these machines. Anyway, it seems like a very good idea, and Microsoft has had this for a long time, to have a security update channel that's different than the other update channel. So astronomers have caught a star eating a planet. Now this is something that happens periodically. Stars collide with other stars and eat stars, but they've never been able to catch one in the act of consuming a planet, but now they have. This creates a sudden burst of energy as the material falling in. Some of it gets very hot and puts out energy, and some of the material ejected is cold in this case because it comes from the planet. So they're actually able to detect that they have a star eating a gas giant. It's never been seen before, so that's interesting. Star collisions are very rare because stars are very small compared to the distance between them. Galaxy collisions are very common because galaxies are very big and they're spaced quite closely together. But there are star collisions, and only a few of them have ever been observed. The Surgeon General says that Americans are too lonely and suffering from it, and this is something I've been hearing about for years and observed, especially elderly people. They say it has huge consequences. Like if you lack social contact, you have a 50% chance of dementia and 30% chance of stroke and heart disease. I can easily understand this. I know people that are isolated, and so he talks about this and talked about how our society has become less connected, which I think another sign of this is the drastic mental illness increase in teenagers, who are also, I think, less connected, and I think they're even more dependent upon social contact. So, yeah, they say age people 15 to 24 now have 70% less social interaction with their friends than they used to. And it's very unhealthy for them. So they have some recommendations to fix it. They say we should improve our social infrastructure with things like parks and libraries so people can meet there. have things like accessible public transportation and paid family leave, get the health center to address these medical needs, and reform digital environments to evaluate our relationship with technology, which is, of course, the one I hear the most about. Largely, people think it's social networking that causes people to have these online interactions instead of face-to-face interactions, and they don't seem to really be as good. And, all right, anyway, I think it's a real problem, and it's our American culture. I know compared to other nations, we have very weak family connections here. A lot of people aren't connected to their family, and they don't take care of their old people in the home as much and things like that. So it's certainly part of the American character. Far more work, far more overtime, working far longer than other nations do, and having much less friends and family. That's the American culture. And it does have a downside. So Apple and Google have made an initiative to handle the consequences of tracking devices. The Apple AirTags are these little things the size of a quarter you can put anywhere, and then you can pick it up. So if you lose an item, like your cell phone or your car, you can put it in there and you can track it down because it sends a Bluetooth signal to other nearby devices and eventually alerts you where it is. But the problem is people use it to track people. They can pick up you can slip this in like somebody's purse or in their car to track them, and that's happening. Stalkers and such are using it, and in fact they say car thieves are using it. They'll go around and see a car they like, they'll put a tracker in it to track it to the home and then steal it when they go home and like go to sleep so they have time to steal it at night and things like that. So to prevent this, they've now made a specification and they've made an RFC, official standard for this, a proposal for the technical specifications for all these trackers to prevent this. And what they say is every tracker should detect when it is near to the owner, and when it's near to the owner, it should stop emitting location information. It should only be emitting location information when it is far from the owner, which makes sense. And if a tracker that is not owned by you moves with you, you should have a way to detect that. The phone will detect that, and it should do something to make it so you can physically locate the item, like emitting a sound. So this is a very good idea, and they have standards for all this, so that when people start complying with this standard, it will hopefully help deal with the stalker problem, which is currently a downside of that technology. Nordstrom is going to close both of their San Francisco stores. Many stores in San Francisco have been closing. Some people say it's because of crime, and they say it's partly because of all the crime, but I think another huge problem is there's just not very many customers in downtown San Francisco to buy things anymore. BART is pretty much empty in the daytime. The problem is people have not gone back to face-to-face work downtown, so those office buildings sit empty, and all the stores don't have as many shoppers, so it's just not worth it having those stores. This is a legacy of COVID. Face-to-face shopping is down just like face-to-face work. So anyway, they're moving elsewhere. And I was amazed to see this. I didn't know Fortran was older than COBOL. When I learned programming, I learned Fortran. Fortran was the serious programming language in the 70s when I learned it. And I thought COBOL was older, but COBOL is actually 2 years younger. Fortran came out in 57. And now a lot of existing infrastructure is in fact running on Fortran, and it is very difficult to find Fortran programmers anymore. Most of them are retired. I guess I'm in this category myself. I was a Fortran programmer. And they say it's not that it's impossible to teach Fortran to new people, but that they don't like living under the restrictions. The point of Fortran was a very primitive language, missing a whole lot of the convenience features, and it's therefore pretty clunky to program in. Anyway, and you can't learn it at hardly any college or anything anymore. And many companies are trying to evaluate the cost of continuing to use their old Fortran code and failing to update to a more modern language. They got some interesting statistics here. They went and looked at Indeed.com, and they found 1,050 openings for Fortran jobs. COBOL has 1,200. C++ has 32,000. And another 15,000 here. Java has 54,000. Python has 83,000. So, like I say, this is why it's not like it's the number one language or even the number 5 language, but there are a bunch of people trying to hire people to program Fortran and COBOL. And RPG is even less desirable. RPG, they say, is the analog to COBOL on IBM system. The RPG I've used is a control language to control your COBOL jobs. But anyway, all right, so it's interesting to see. And but people are still using Fortran just like they're still using COBOL, which is news to me. Anyway, that's it for the news.